Great, it's official. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Garden to Glass Winter Mocktails. This is a program by the UC Master Food Preserver online program, and we're very excited to welcome you all today. So today you're going to be hearing from me. I'm Colin Perry. I'm the MC for today's event. Kirsten Hansen is going to be our Q&A moderator, and then you'll hear from three of us as panelists, and we're going to be teaching you different recipes or techniques. You're going to hear from Kirsten Hansen, Mika Black, and then myself, Cole and Perry. We also are receiving staff support today from Michelle Maya. Thank you so much for being here and supporting us in today's program. So a little bit of housekeeping. Please keep your mics muted when not speaking. And during live questions, you can unmute and speak or raise your Zoom hand, and that's depicted on the slide. At any time, you can type your questions or comments in the Zoom Q&A feature. Open this from the menu bar. Usually that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you don't see Q&A on your bar, you can click the three little dots in the circle where it says More, and you'll probably find that option there. If we have open discussion where you're not typing into the Q&A box, you are welcome to speak up during that time only, please. So who are we? The UC MFP Online Delivery Program is a community outreach, online-based, grant-funded, volunteer program within the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. We provide up-to-date, research-based information on food safety and preservation. Our mission is to keep Californians safe, as well as they use culturally appropriate research-based practices to safely preserve food in the home, reducing food waste, increasing food security, and providing engaging ways for Californians to explore healthy food. We do have a disclaimer. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the University of California. The University of California name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. And what that means, if you see any specific products or brands or things that are used in any of the portion of today's programming, that's not an endorsement. That's just what we are using in our home kitchens to be able to teach you. So what's going to happen during today's programming? Today's programming is broken up into 6 parts. We're going to talk a little bit about cleaning. Then we're going to talk about different types of beverages. Kirsten is going to teach you how to make a peach shrub. I'm going to teach you how to make a bouquet garni mocktail. Mika is going to teach you how to make preserved lemons and how to make a dirty mocktini. But first up, let's talk a little bit about cleaning.
Hello, everyone. So I'm here to talk about cleaning best practices because anytime we're doing food preparation and especially food preparation for longer term preservation, we want to clean before we start preparing food because of germs. We want to make sure that we are avoiding bacteria and infections. And I'm not quite sure where that sound is coming from. Thank you. Next slide, please. Cole, it looks like there may be a double of you. I'm going to continue. So before you begin, you want to clean.
To put your email in the menu information. We have a way to get that email. And then
Kristen, you are muted.
To let you know, to make sure to
follow. Yeah, it looks like, Michelle, could you remove that extra Cole and Perry who is there?
What is that?
Thank you very much. Clean all food preparation areas and surfaces with hot soapy water. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. And then you want to sanitize your surfaces if needed. So in most cases, cleaning your surfaces with hot soapy water is sufficient, but if any household members have gastrointestinal symptoms, especially this time of year, norovirus is going around, y'all, you want to take cleaning to the next level. So you want to use a solution of 3/4 cups of chlorine bleach to 1 gallon of water to wipe down surfaces. Let it stand for 5 minutes and then rinse with water and let air dry. And you want to make sure you're letting it stand and not immediately wiping it off because that standing time is what kills all of the undesirable bacteria and viruses. For dishes, plastics, and wooden cutting boards, you want to sanitize dishes and plastics with 1 tablespoon of chlorine bleach to 1 gallon of water. And for wooden cutting boards, 3 tablespoons of chlorine bleach to 1 gallon of water. Soak for 2 minutes. Again, that soaking time is important to get rid of undesirable bacteria and viruses. Drain and then let it air dry. And if you're thinking, wow, that seems like a lot of water and bleach, disinfecting wipes are an easy alternative to bleach. It's okay to use disinfecting wipes to sanitize hard, non-porous surfaces like countertops. Make sure you read the package instructions to see how long to keep the surface visibly wet. Again, you need that time of it being wet to kill bacteria and viruses. Rinse food contact surfaces, things like, again, countertops, afterwards with clean water. And you don't want to use disinfecting wipes on dishes, glassware, or utensils. Don't let kids use them, and they're a one-time use product, so throw them away in the trash afterwards. Wash your hands with warm soapy water. We should all be familiar with that by now, but again, wash your hands well, 20 seconds, 2 repeats of the birthdays. And finally, don't forget your clean apron. We often think of aprons as protecting you from food, but they also protect food from you. So in my case, for example, I have a fuzzy dog who loves to rub against me and also a 6-month-old baby. And both of those leave traces on my clothing. And so by wearing an apron that I try really hard to keep away from the dog fur, I'm protecting the food from anything that I'm carrying on my clothing throughout the day. This is, again, especially important when you're thinking about long-term food preservation. And finally, don't forget your phone. If you might touch it, and we all know, even if you think you aren't going to touch it, you probably will. You'll use it for timing. You'll use it for looking at recipes. You'll get a text message from your mother. Wipe it down to sanitize its surface so that you're not transferring any phone germs to your food.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. And now we're going to really get started and we're going to talk a little bit about different beverage types. So, some of you here today might be brand new to food preservation in general, or maybe you set it as a goal for 2026 that you want to start to do more of this stuff at home. So, beverages are actually like a really great place to start your home food preservation journey, and there's a couple reasons for that. First, it's a great way to make use of specialty ingredients, including herbs, things that you might not have large quantities of or access to all the time. It's a great way to rely on staple ingredients, things that you already have at home: sugar, honey, vinegar, basics. It also helps you use leftover bits and bobs. So if you make a big salad or you're making a dessert or something, you might have some fruit or herbs left over, and that can be translated into a different type of into a beverage. So it's a great place to get started, and hopefully by the end of today's presentation, you will leave with at least one thing that you are going to try. And for some context around why we decided on the mocktails theme, a 2025 Gallup poll found that only 54% of US adults reported drinking alcohol, and this is the lowest level since the survey began in 1939, and it's down from about 62% in 2023. So this is considered a historic decline. Now, US alcoholic beverages with low or reduced alcohol or alcohol-free product claims, those have actually grown by 457% in product launches over the past just 5 years. And mocktails, they're one of the fastest growing drink categories on food service menus. They're up more than 140% in menu presence in recent years, and that is expected to double by 2028. Now, that said, humans have been creative with beverages for centuries, and now is a great time to familiarize yourself with new to you beverage options. Maybe you can freshen up the things that you are sipping on at home. So, what are different types of beverages? Today, we're going to briefly go over the differences between mocktails, cocktails, teas and tisanes, infusions, syrups and cordials, shrubs, switchels, oxymels, fermented beverages, and then bitters or what are considered botanical beverages. So that's a lot of different categories. So mocktails, what's a mocktail? It's non-alcoholic, it's a mixed drink, and it's designed to replicate the complexity and the presentation. So part of what makes a mocktail is that it looks pretty. Um, of cocktails using juices, syrups, and acids like lemon juice. Sometimes we use bitters in mocktails, and then usually some form of carbonation. Now, a cocktail is an alcoholic mixed drink, and that's a mix of spirits with juices, syrups, bitters, or infusions to bring differences in like your balance and your flavor profile. Now, a tea, you all probably know what a tea is, but a true tea is made by infusing the leaves of the Camellia sinensis plant. And if you've ever heard of black, green, white tea, those are different like roast levels of the tea leaves themselves, and there's a bunch of different stuff within that. But a true tea is made from the Camellia sinensis plant. Then we have what's called a tisane, or this is like an herbal tea. This is an infusion made from herbs, flowers, fruits, or roots that do not include true tea leaves. What's pictured there is I grow a bunch of different types of mint, or sometimes I buy specialty mints at the farmer's market or from my local growers. And I dry those in my dehydrator. I use a spice grinder, grind it up, and then I have an herbal tea at home and I can put it in a little tea bag and then have mint tea. An infusion is a type of beverage that's created by steeping plant material in water, vinegar, sugar solutions, or alcohol to extract flavor and aroma. So what's pictured here is a simple kumquat and bay leaf infusion that I did at home. Now, what's a syrup? A syrup is a concentrated sweetened liquid that's made by dissolving sugar in water. It's often infused with herbs, fruits, and spices, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you more about today. Now, what is a cordial? If any of you have ever gone to the county fair, your local county fair, or maybe you entered something into it, in the food category, there's usually a cordial category. What is that? A cordial is a sweetened, flavored liquid. It's traditionally made with fruit, herbs, spices, and with or without alcohol. And a shrub, this is something you're going to be learning more about today as well. What is a shrub? A shrub is usually a tart but also sweet beverage. It's made by combining fruit, sugar, and vinegar, and it's typically used as a mixer. And then one of my favorites is called a switchel. This is also called a haymaker's punch. This is a very old school drink, and the goal with this back in the day was hydration. Haymaker's punch was often served after you were working out in the fields all day. So it's basically a traditional drinking vinegar is a good way to think about it. It's made with water, vinegar, sweetener, and sometimes ginger. Then an oxymel. This is another old style beverage. This is an herbal preparation. It combines vinegar and honey to extract and preserve plant properties for whatever you've got going on in your oxymel. So this is a violet topped oxymel that I've made at my home and made look pretty. I topped it with an edible flower. Then we have another category. This is fermented beverages, and we have like a non-alcoholic focus here. So these are drinks that are produced through controlled fermentation by beneficial microbes. So if you've ever heard of kombucha or ginger beer, it's a fermented beverage. And then there's something called aguas frescas. This is light, refreshing drinks that are made from blended fruits, grains, sometimes seeds, flowers, mixed with water and sugar. Then there's another category that you might label functional beverages or botanical beverages. These are drinks that are formulated with herbs, minerals, or botanicals for flavor and tradition rather than medical claims. So if you've ever had coconut water with lime to hydrate you, or rosemary lemonade, which is what I have a thyme lemonade pictured here. And then if you've ever had golden milk, that would be considered like a functional beverage. And then we have this word tonic. So what is a tonic? Historically, the word tonic referred to something that like toned or supported your body. But today the word tonic is something that appears more in like a marketing context. It's usually a concentrated, very flavorful beverage base, which is usually botanical or bitter. And then you dilute that with water or soda or ice before drinking, usually. Sometimes people take liberties with what these words mean. So that is the rundown of different beverage types. And now Kristen is going to talk to you and show you how to make a peach shrub. And I'm going to
Sorry, here we
hide
go.
myself.
There we go. Okay. So thank you. So just to recap, Cole just spoke about this, but a fruit shrub is a fruit syrup that's mixed with vinegar. And historically, they were made as a way to preserve fruit to drink and mixed with soda water or water. And shrubs are non-alcoholic, and they can be mixed creatively in cocktails if you want to, or served traditionally with soda water over ice. Next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about peach shrubs, but this is a very flexible drink and you can use lots of different fruits for it. So you're going to use 1 cup of frozen peaches, and some other options include apricots, grapes, plums, berries, prickly pear, or cherries. And I should mention here also that originally this section was going to be presented by my fellow MFP Trina, who was unable to come today. So many thanks to Trina for these slides, for the prep, and for doing all the background research on shrubs. Thank you, Trina. 1 cup of sugar and 1 cup of unfiltered apple cider vinegar, but other vinegar options such as balsamic, sherry, or red wine vinegar are acceptable. The tools that you'll need for this drink are a 1 quart canning jar and a 1 pint canning jar. Your prep is only 5 minutes, but your chill time to wait to drink the beverage is 1 to 3 days. So start before you want your shrub, because you're waiting until the sugar dissolves and the fruit releases its juices. So in terms of using frozen peaches, frozen fruit is a great option for shrubs. Fruits that are frozen at the peak of ripeness guarantee really delicious preserved foods. So shrubs are a great option for any frozen fruits that you happen to have hanging out in your freezer. I'll also say shrubs are a great way to use in the summer fruit that is starting to go overripe and might be too ripe for things like jam. But your first step here is to defrost your frozen peaches. Frozen fruit in the package can be thawed in the refrigerator, under running water, or in the microwave if you're going to use it immediately. So don't microwave it and then put it back in the refrigerator, but as long as you're using it immediately, that's fine. And in this case, a 10-ounce bag made slightly over 1 cup of fruit. Your second step is to crush the fruit and combine it with sugar in a 1 quart canning jar. This is where things like bean mashers or potato mashers work very well, even spoons, but you really want to mash the fruit and combine it with the sugar. Cover it and shake to combine. And the sugar is going to macerate the fruit and draw out its juices. Chill it for 1 to 3 days in the refrigerator or until the sugar dissolves and the fruit releases its juice. And then after 1 to 3 days, pour the fruit mixture through a wire mesh strainer into a 2-cup measuring cup, pressing it with the back of a spoon to release as much juice as possible. And you should get about 3/4 of a cup. And for those of you who have made jellies before, you might be familiar with the advice that you do not want to press your fruit with the back of a spoon because you want to have as clear a juice as possible. That's not true here. We want as much juice as possible, so press away. And on the slides, we say discard the solids, but another option for the solids is to make fruit leather. Leftover fruit pulp from shrubs or from jellies makes a wonderful fruit leather if you happen to have a dehydrator. Once you have your sugar and fruit juice mixture, stir the vinegar into the fruit syrup. The vinegar is the key preserving agent in this recipe and is what allows you to keep it in the refrigerator safely for a long time. And it creates a delicious, tangy, sweet tart syrup. And this is a deliciously complex and palate cleansing taste without a lot of ingredients. Transfer the mixture to a 1 pint jar, cover it with a clean lid, and chill it for 2 weeks before serving. And again, it's not going to ferment at all. This is not a fermentation recipe. The chilling period is just to allow the flavors to mellow and mix so that you get the best flavor. And fruit shrubs can be stored in the refrigerator for 6 months for best flavor. And they can be stored that long because you have the preservative effect of sugar. You have the vinegar, which is making an acidic environment, as well as the fruit, which is acidic. So it's safe to store in the refrigerator for a long time. And of course, the cold of the refrigerator is also having a safety effect. Once you're ready to drink it, serve it on ice with soda water and enjoy. Thank you very much. Back to you, Cole.
Thank you so much for that. Do we want to pause here for if there's any questions? I don't know if we have any. Otherwise, we can move to the next section and do a Q&A at the end of that.
So I have one comment question, which is from a fellow MFP that our slides are incorrect. We cite our far too much bleach per gallon of water. Basically, we got our units mixed up. Thank you very much, Sarah, for catching that, and we're going to correct that in our program-wide slides. I'm going to post information about safe levels of sanitizing liquids into the chat, everyone. And Daniel asks, will you be sharing the slide deck and handout? Yes, we will be sharing both the slide deck and a handout with all the recipes and some bonus recipes, including prickly pear resources, all the prickly pear you could ever want, and after this. So, and Michelle gave more details in that answer.
Great. Okay, folks, well, let's move on and talk about how to make a bouquet garni mocktail, my favorite. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how to go from this, what's over on the left side of the screen, over to the right, the beautiful little mocktail pictured there. So this is a mocktail that I served on Thanksgiving this year. And it was just a nice additional option for guests to have something refreshing and something that was not alcohol based. So how do we get started? So our first step is we are going to make the simple syrup. Remember we talked about syrups earlier? Well, first step, make a simple syrup. So in this recipe, we are going to mix the ingredients that are pictured. We're going to do water with some white sugar and then your herbs. So what is a bouquet garni? You've probably heard that term before. It is a small bundle of herbs and it's usually tied together with some kitchen twine, which is what is pictured there. Or you could take all those herbs and put them in a small cheesecloth bag. A lot of times they have like a drawstring at the top so that you can prevent it from leaching out. And it's used basically like a tea bag to infuse usually soups and stews with flavor. Bouquet garni is French for garnished bouquet. We are going to be using a bouquet garni to make an infused simple syrup, which we will then use to make a mocktail. And the simple syrup that we make can also be used in ice creams, desserts, cocktails, and as sweeteners in your hot teas, for example. So what is a simple syrup? We talked about syrups earlier. A simple syrup is a liquid sweetener. It is equal parts, 1-to-1 ratio, water and sugar. And you heat it up until the sugar dissolves. Heating the liquid prevents any graininess or grittiness from the sugar. It lets that sugar completely dissolve into the water, and then that makes for a really smooth texture. Simple syrups are used by bartenders for use in cocktails and mocktails. And you can also make one at home to use in your teas, to make ice creams, desserts. You can use it as like a glaze on pastries or cakes. And of course, to make mocktails and cocktails at home, whatever your preference is. So for this recipe, this is going to make 1 or 2 mocktails. So we have 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water, and 1 bunch of herbs. And the thing is here, I want to say with the herbs, the amount pictured is the amount that I used in this case. This is one of those things where it's to taste. And you can control the intensity of the flavor, which I will show you in just a couple slides for how long you let the herbs steep. In today's example, I used sage, rosemary, thyme, and bay leaf to make my simple syrup. So you add your water and your sugar to your pot. You heat it over medium. You check visually, make sure that sugar is fully dissolved. You'll be able to see it. And I usually take it to a light simmer. You don't want it to boil because if anybody has ever made candy before, you can end up with quite a mess. So you do not want it to boil. You just want to bring it up to heat, maybe to a light simmer. And as soon as you hit that, turn off the heat. Then pop your herbs in, give it a swirl, give it a stir around, and you can leave the herbs in that pot for 15 minutes, do a little taste, 30 minutes, do a little taste. And when it reaches a flavor that you like, that's when you stop. You can leave them in up to an hour. Some herbs can taste more bitter more quickly. It just sort of depends. And the color on the stove there is from the herbs steeping into the heated sugar water mixture. Once you get it to the flavor you like, you strain the herbs out of the mixture, and then ta-da, you've got your infused simple syrup. And if you want a really, really, really strong flavor, if you want to highlight the bitter notes, the astringency notes, you can actually put it into a jar like pictured and put it in the fridge. You only need to do that for a minimal amount of time. And most people find that they can get the flavor that they like just on that stovetop. You can also make something that's called a rich simple syrup. And I wanted to make sure that you leave today knowing the differences between a simple syrup and a rich simple syrup, because that's going to let you make choices about the texture that in the experience you want. So a rich simple syrup is 2 parts sugar to 1 part water, whereas a simple syrup is 1 to 1. And a rich simple syrup it's literally richer tasting because there's more sugar. It's also thicker, and as a result, it is more shelf stable. And so there is some science behind this. So in the food preservation world, this is called water activity. Water activity is a food science measure of the energy status of water, and it tells us how free water is for microbial growth. So basically, the sugar and the water, they match up, and then that water becomes unavailable for bacteria to use. So rich simple syrups have more sugar, which means we have better water activity. It's literally more shelf stable because of that. And just as a reminder, sugar is a food preservation tool. Sugar binds to water, and that makes water unavailable for bacteria to use. So now we can take our simple syrup and now we can make the mocktail. So I want you to leave today knowing what the base ratio for a mocktail is, because you will probably experiment with different flavorings in your simple syrups, but having this base ratio in mind for a mocktail is going to ensure that you end up with something that is very sippable and that you enjoy drinking. So the ratio is 4 parts of your base to 1 part to your sour, and then half a part to your sweet. So for this one, I did 4 parts sparkling water to 1 part sour, and I used lemon juice, and then half a part sweet. And so that was the simple syrup. So I used 4 ounces of soda water, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and half an ounce of simple syrup. Put it in the glass, swirled it around, and then I like to use the big square ice cubes, popped that in, put some pretty herbs on as a garnish, and I was good to go. So how long can you store your simple syrups? So you can store your simple syrups in your fridge for about up to 4 weeks. And then in the freezer, you can also store your simple syrups in the freezer, especially if you're not going to use it for a month or 2. Rich simple syrups are nice in this case because of the sugar content. They're not going to freeze rock solid. And so you can store the rich simple syrup in the freezer. And when you take it out, it's going to still be malleable. So you'll be able to mix it into a drink right out of the freezer. And that's another reason that people sometimes prefer a rich simple syrup to a plain simple syrup. So that is how you make a bouquet garni simple syrup and then a mocktail. And now you're going to get to hear from Mika, who's going to show us how to make preserved lemons and walk us through the dirty mocktini. And I'm going to take the slides down so that you can better see.
And we have some questions in the Q&A.
Oh, questions, great.
And we have a few minutes for this, which is great because people have a lot of questions. So the first couple questions are about sugar substitutes. So can I use cane sugar to substitute for white sugar in the recipes? And if you wanted to do fewer or like less sugar options for any of the recipes, how would that work, Cole? And I'll just tag on another question, which is, can we make a simple syrup with stevia or other healthier sugars?
Um, okay, so I recommend using your basic white table sugar. That's what's used in the, food service industry. You can certainly give it a try with the cane sugar, and see if you like that taste. The cane sugar, you're going to have more of a deeper flavor with that, but it will work. Sugar is going to dissolve in the water, so I say go for it. And then the simple syrup with the stevia, I don't think so. I am not an expert on that. I don't know. One thing that I do is I actually grow stevia. Just FYI to anyone that might be interested in that, you can actually grow that as a plant. It's like a little green leaf. Um, so that's how I answered that.
And I would also say, so having done a quick search online, you can certainly try with stevia, but bear in mind that um, you may get a sweet result, but it's not going to have the same kind of food preservative qualities.
Yes.
That's one of the main things anytime that you decide to swap in sugars. Here, it's not such a food danger issue as if you were trying to do a jam or something shelf stable. But if you want to make a simple syrup with stevia or another sugar substitute, I would plan to use it immediately and not store it long
Mhm.
term in the fridge.
Yes.
We also have a question about other herbs. Could you use white sage or would it be strong? And other herb recommendations.
I don't know if white sage is edible. I'm not sure on that. I've only just used like garden sage. At the very end of this presentation, I have a slide for you all that has some suggested herb and fruit pairings that work really well together, the flavors melding. So hopefully you'll see something inspiring there later on.
And then another question from Estella. If you're using the shelf-stable syrup, would you have the syrup amount, or would you still use the full amount?
Um, I would recommend using the full amount because there is that base mocktail ratio. Each person here is going to probably prefer things a little bit differently. Some people like it a little more sour, so then maybe your base mocktail recipe changes the ratios a little bit. In the context of you're making a mocktail now to sip it, we don't have food safety concerns with that because you're not like you're consuming it right away. So you are able to adjust the ratio for what's in your glass without worry. I also see in the chat a question about lemon juice. So for a mocktail that you're sipping right away, you can use a fresh lemon and squeeze that and use the fresh lemon juice for your sour component. You can also use commercially bottled lemon or lime juice as well. It just depends on what you have on hand. And again, that's one of the benefits of working with beverages. You can use up bits and bobs, or you have an extra half of a lemon, and you'll be able to make fuller use of kitchen scraps.
We have a few more questions. If you freeze simple syrup in serving size cubes, can you use that directly in the glass and let it melt partially or all the way and then ma make the mocktail? I love that idea,
Sarah, I
Sarah.
love this. This is a great idea. And especially if you get those trays with like the smaller size cubes. Yeah, heck yes, you can absolutely put those in. I would probably use the silicone ones because it makes it easier to pop them out. Your rich simple syrup should still work in that as well. As I told you, the rich simple syrup in the freezer is not going to freeze rock solid like your simple syrup. And so it'll be a little bit malleable, which I think that's brilliant. I think that's a great approach.
And then we have a question about honey preserving well in a simple syrup. Again, Cole, you can take this, but I can take first shot at that,
Go
which
for it.
is so first of all, honey is actually sweeter than cane syrup, or
Mhm.
white sugar. So that in mind when you're doing a simple syrup. It's also liquid to begin with, so your ratios may be off, and it's not going to have the same preservative properties as granulated sugar. And of course, you want to contemplate the fact that it will add honey flavor to your mocktail. But if you use it and make it right away and you want that honey flavor in your mocktail, it's a taste issue. It only becomes a safety issue if you're looking to preserve long term.
And Laura, you might be interested in looking into oxymel beverages because those are a mix between vinegars and honeys.
And we have one more question from Larissa about shrubs. And anonymous participant, I'll type an answer to your question afterwards. Recipes that mix the mass sugar, syrup, and vinegar from the beginning. Is there a benefit to making shrubs that way, the way that was presented? Not particularly. Shrubs are very malleable. The only thing I think would be that you're still going to want to strain out your fruit solids. So whether you want to strain them before or after the vinegar is really up to you.
Mhm. Great.
Okay,
Those are
take it
some great
away, Cole.
questions. Yep. Okay, Mika, all you.
Mika Black, and this is my whole face. But right now we're going to be working on some preserved lemons. It is dry January, so I'm glad that I caught everybody on the last day of the new year. And I really love doing this. It's really fun. One of the reasons why I became a master food preserver is because I often see like waste or I have things and I'm like, I know I can do other things with it. What can I do? So it started with herbs and then it went to like my neighbor's lemon tree and I just said, hey, can I have a little extra? And I think preserved lemons is an awesome way to extend the life of a harvest. As you can see, I have some store-bought lemons, however, speaking of, and then I have a neighbor's lemon. Look at that size. And we'll talk about why that's significant in a bit. But with preserved lemons, we're going to be using lemons, of course, and we're going to use today kosher salt. And it's one of those awesome, I like to call traditional recipes
Brad.
that we're able to scientifically research and recommend as master food preservers. I think humans have been preserving lemons for as long as we've discovered or known about salt and lemons. So, you will get some really great recipes from Mediterranean dishes, North African dishes, Middle Eastern cuisines, is where you're going to find a lot of preserved lemon recipes. For your soups, your stews, your chicken. If you've ever had tagine, it's the most amazing thing ever, and it's always that preserved lemon on top. I like it as a snack. Sometimes I just put it on top of my rice and some sardines, and it really just adds a burst of flavor to anything that I'm eating. But today, we're not going to do that. We're going to make preserved lemons, and then we're going to drink it. So what you're gonna need is, of course, you're gonna clean and dry your lemons, which I've already taken the liberty of doing. And we talked about earlier, sanitizing your area. As you can see, I'm wearing a super awesome Master Food Preserver apron. If you watching are interested in getting one of these, definitely looking into joining our Master Food Preserver program. I think the applications are available later in the year, I think around November, December. So I'll keep that in mind if you want to learn more about master food preservation. Also, shout out to Henry Shaw. On our website, we have a presentation from Henry Shaw. He gives another method of preserved lemons. The method we're using today is going to be method number 3. We have 1, 2, 3 total preserved lemon recipes available on our site. So definitely recommend that you check into that. So let's get started. I like things that are easy peasy, mainly because I actually haven't been into food preservation as long as many of my peers. So I don't want to do anything too crazy, but I also want to have fun and enjoy what I make. So I'm taking these lemons, right? They're clean, they're dry. My surface is nice, clean, and sanitized. My tools are clean and dry. I've got my apron on. I've even got an ugly hairnet on for you guys. Um, just so that you get an idea of what's expected when you're preparing food for yourself and others, because food safety is paramount. We're not using your commercial preservatives. we're using salts, we're using sugars, we're making syrups, we're making vinegars, and not too many outside chemical additives. So that's why cleanliness is your best friend when you're doing these exercises. So enough of that. Let's get to it. I got my lemon. I like to cut the navel, so that's the stem side of the lemon, and I just cut the tip. Oh yeah, and remember your knife safety. That's important as well. So you have the tip, it's cut off like so. Then I'm going to cut a little more than half down the middle, like that. It's gonna talk. It's gonna be like, hello. And then I'm going to cut again. So horizontal, vertical, however you want to call it. And I'm going to make like, do you want to date me? Yes or no. Remember those? Those little origamis. That's what you want to make with your lemon. And for today, I'm actually going to juice my lemon just a little bit because it's on the large side. So I want to flatten it out a bit. These store-bought lemons are huge. And my neighbor has a variety, I forget the name, but from Mexico, and his lemons are a lot smaller. But I'm gonna juice it just to flatten it out a teensy bit. And I'm gonna use some kosher salt, bibbity bit. Okay. So I've juiced it a little bit. We're gonna open up our lemon. And we are going to generously salt that bad boy. Like so. Generously. Why so generous? Why hand out all the salt? Well, we want the salt to pull the moisture and the liquid from the lemon. And I'll show you why once we're done with our demonstration. So you want to stuff that lemon with as much salt as you can. And then with your jar, I prefer a wide mouth jar. Why? Because that way I can get my hand in the jar. There's no scientific reason for it other than lemon stuffing. Okay, so let's do it again. Again, I just like the stem side. It's aesthetics. If you say, oh, Mika, I accidentally cut from the other side, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to ruin the lemon or the flavor. It's just visual. I'm being a snob. And again, we're gonna juice. Oh, I forgot to show you, remember? We want to quarter it, right? And this is so fun. This is so man, I'm feeling like it's citrus season, you know? I really feel like I'm getting the smell. I live with my granddad, so he's gonna come in here and he's gonna be like, oh yeah, you got some lemonade for me? And I'm gonna say, no, I've got a dirty martini. Okay. So it's that one. And we're gonna salt again, generous amount of salt. It's okay to be salty. I've told this joke, I think maybe about 4 times now. And I imagine people are laughing at it, or I'm hoping. But yes, you see that? You just salt it. All the salt. Squish, squish, squish. Squish, squish, squish. And just for the sake of time, we're gonna do one more. Gonna cut that lemon off the top. I'm gonna cut it a little more than half, remember? a little more than half. That way it's quartered. I'm gonna juice it real good. And then you're gonna say, well, what are you gonna do with the leftover juice? I'm gonna pour it in the jar because with this recipe, the magic is that we're using citric acid, that the juice from the lemon, and we're using the salt, and we're creating an environment that bacteria absolutely hate, right? It's like, no, please. It's like a toxic wasteland for germs. But just because we're creating that environment, we don't want to get too cocky, right? Overconfident and forget our food safety practices. So that's why when we're done, we want to store it in a cool, dry place because we don't want to take any chances. And you're going to store it for about maximum 6 months. But if you open it, you have to refrigerate it. And that buys you an additional 6 months. So then I'm just going to pour this over it. And I'm going to seal it. And then I also recommend you labeling it so you know what's what, right? And then, sometimes I like to baby them and I like to kind of just twist the salt and the juice around just to see how it's going to go. Like once a week, I like to do that. Just say, hey, salt babies, how you doing? And of course, you want to label it and make sure, I made it on, January 31st. But I'm going to show you something. So we made this today. This is the oldest preserved lemon. Blooper. This is the oldest preserved lemon that I have. And I made this one about 2 weeks ago, right? So you see how that juices come out from the salt and it's softened. Technically, it's usable now, but you don't have that concentration of flavor quite yet. But it's still just it's 2 weeks and it's still a beautiful color. And this will trip you out. I literally made this yesterday. And this one's a lot more briny. I squeezed more lemon juice for this one. But yeah, the difference between yesterday and 2 weeks ago is still pretty close. So this is one of those recipes that definitely requires some patience. You're definitely going to check your jar every week and go, are you ready yet? And it's going to be like, no, give me another 4 weeks. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll just bake some cookies. And so that's how we make our preserved lemons. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. So I've been answering some questions as we go along, lots of questions about other citrus fruits that you can use. And the answer is it'll be a less traditional flavor, but yes, you can. But one question I wasn't sure about, Mika, is does it matter if it's coarse or fine kosher salt?
You just use coarse. I think if you use fine, you're still going to need to really stuff that lemon, and make sure that you're heavily salting your lemon. So whether it's coarse or fine kosher salt or sea salt even, you want to make sure you're really packing as much salt as you can into the lemon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. So now we're going to continue. We're gonna get to the good stuff, right? We're gonna imbibe ourselves. I personally love mocktails. You really tap into your creativity, your mad scientist skills, because even though you're not using alcohol, you are still using some chemistry. Otherwise, you're just drinking juice, right? And so what I like about the dirty martini is it's a derivative, of course, of its alcoholic cousin, the dirty martini. Dirty martini is brine usually from olive juice brine. And you're going to use a gin or vodka and vermouth. And so today we're not using any alcohol, but if you at home, when you're making it, you want like that alcohol feeling taste, definitely you can use a non-alcoholic replacement. But for today, we're going to use white grape juice, and that's going to be our vermouth. And the preserved lemon is going to give us that bite. And we're going to use a little bit of the brine from the lemon as well. So to make our dirty martini, I'm going to need a lemon. I'm feeling a little salty today, so let's use like a little less than half. Okay. And then we're gonna chop it real good. When you start making mocktails, you'll find there's a lot of recipes require you to muddle. This is muddling. I remember in the beginning, I was like, what is muddling? And it's like, oh, I'm gonna smash. And then if you don't have a muddler, when I started, I just use a spoon. Or like my little garlic press thing. Same thing, something hard, really get it in there, right? Okay. So we've muddled enough. We've muddled and meddled. Okay. So then I have a container. I cheated while we were out. I went and got some ice. So you want to make sure you have ice. And you're going to pour that in. And we're going to use the measurement, right? We can use some white grape juice. If you want like a vodka taste, apple cider vinegar, or just apple juice gives it a sweeter taste. But personally, I like the aesthetic of the white grape. So we use like maybe 4 ounces of that. And then I'm going to use the brine from my preserved lemon just to give it that added flavor. With the ice, we're getting somewhere, guys. And then you're going to use a chilled glass. This is my chilled glass. And I like to add a little lemon to my chilled glass. I like to get that lemon aroma started. Okay, this is the moment. This will either go horribly wrong or horribly well, right? We're gonna shake for 20 seconds. And then I'm gonna separate it. There we go. Feel free. Huzzah. Then we're gonna strain. Ooh, she pretty. And then you can garnish with like thyme, rosemary, but today I made a little lemon olive. And then enjoy, everybody.
That looks so good, Mika.
So
Can you tell
good.
us about, so is it very salty when you taste it? And also, do you rinse the salt off of the preserved lemons? Like explain to us what the salt experience is like in this.
Okay, so if you've ever had a dirty martini, it is salty because you're using pickled olive juice, right? But when it comes to preserved lemons, this one, as I said before, as you can see, is fairly old, right? So after today or maybe by Tuesday, I'm done with this. And you don't see any salt, right? And that comes from just regular use. I've used it quite a bit. With my newer batch, My 2 week old. You see that salt?
Hmm.
See that salt at the bottom? It's super briny. I use coarse salt, of course, so if you used finer salt, you may not have that issue. But this one, depending on your preference or your sensitivity to salt, you definitely, it's again, after 2 to 3 weeks, you can use it. So this one you would probably want to rinse before using, but it's also not going to be as flavorful. I usually say wait at least a month until it's martini ready.
Hmm.
And then if you can see the one I made yesterday, this one's gonna be super salty. So this will definitely be one of the ones that I would probably have to rinse before use.
Can you tell us about like how the flavor develops? Like if you were to have a preserved lemon that you made 3 weeks ago versus one 3 months ago, what's like the difference in the taste going to be like?
So the older the preserved lemon, the more intense the taste.
Hmm.
And we
That
have a
The
great
salt,
question in the
the
chat.
citrus is just really working. Yes?
Sorry. So we have a ton of questions about preserved lemons in the chat. Thank you, everyone. And we've got 4 minutes, so we'll go through these as fast as we can. Estella asks, how long does it typically take to be ready, and how do you know when it's ready?
Oh, that's a good question. So let's see. It again, it's food. It's ready after 3 weeks. Let's look at the younger one again, right? I kind of don't want to open it, but just for you, I'll open it. Oh, did you hear that? Okay. So it's already soft. It's not as soft as my oldest, but you can see like the pickling effect. It's very visual. I don't really know how else to explain it. I just know that I follow the general rule of 2 to 3 weeks when you can really use it, but it's not mushy, right? So it's not the physical like mushiness of my oldest. I talk to them like they're my babies, right? I can like squish this with just my index finger and my thumb. You see that? You see the color even has changed over time. um it will soften and lower, and you'll get more juice in your jar as time goes by. I hope I was able to answer that question.
Thank you. We also have questions about should the jar not be fully packed? And someone said they've read lemons should be entirely submerged in juice to avoid fungus and bacterial growth.
Yes, so it can be entirely submerged in juice to prevent bacterial growth. However, this method of not completely submerging it in juice and allowing the salt to extract the juice over time is also correct.
Great, thank you. Amy asks, what's the biggest container you would use for preserving lemons?
See, I would say this is probably the biggest. And I don't really, what I actually do is once I open it, for example, I've opened this one, even though it's 2 to 3 weeks old, um, just cause I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator. So it'll have to develop the rest of its time in the refrigerator, just because I've exposed it to air, and I've kind of released the Kraken, right? So food safety rules, I'm gonna have to put this one in the refrigerator for the next like probably like 7 months. And honestly, I use this because this is for one person. My granddad does not eat preserved lemons. So one person, this is more than enough. I have enough preserved lemon, I think, by the end of this class that I've done to last me a time. So that's why this is the largest. But no matter how large your jar, you want to follow the same rules. You want to make sure it's clean. You want to make sure it's sanitized. You want to make sure your lemons are clean. You want to make sure your lemons are heavily salted. And I would even argue, say, the bigger the jar, you might want to add more juice just to be on the safer side.
Thank you. So I would also add, so I have done preserved lemons in a quart jar. Um, and unlike Mika, I actually will put it directly into the refrigerator to do its little preservation thing. Um, so it takes longer, but it also preserves well. And so if you can use a larger container, I wouldn't go much larger than a quart. Question about how, if we're using the juice, how would we rinse it? And can you keep preserved lemons in the freezer to increase shelf life?
Not preserved lemons in the freezer ever. I would have to look that up because I don't want to give you incorrect information. But I
From a
will
food
say
safety
that what you,
perspective, oh, sorry, continue.
oh, that's okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I will say you do definitely want the citrus and the salt. You want to give it a chance to do its thing, and I'm not quite sure if it can do that if it's frozen. So something to think about.
Yeah, so I would say probably you would want to allow it to do its food preservation thing for 3 weeks first. And then once you're happy with the status of them, you could absolutely freeze it because freezing is another food safe preservation method. I'll also add if you were going to do that, I would suggest making it into paste. So do a preserved lemon paste. So sort of chop it up or grind it down and then freeze it maybe in ice cubes. Because oftentimes you're not going to be wanting to use a whole frozen lemon. And I can just imagine sort of golf ball sized pucks in your freezer may be less useful than a paste. Um, let's see here. Rinsing, and I had a question here about rinsing the lemons if we're using the juice. So it sounds like, so if you're just using, it sounds like if you're just using the juice, do you still need to rinse the lemons? Is that your question, Kimberly or Kimber? Sorry.
Should I go? Oh, I'm just gonna, I'm
Yeah, and Kimber,
gonna
if I
switch
don't
back.
have your
Can
question
you hear
right,
me?
feel free to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So somebody was saying, isn't it salty? And you said you can just rinse it. It's like, well, wait a second, you're using the juice. So how would you rinse the juice if you don't want it to be salty? I didn't follow that whole part of the conversation.
And let me be clear. So, in for the if it's too salty, I did mention rinsing, but I think also I was thinking in terms of cooking. If you're going to use it as part of like a side dish or a topping, you definitely want to rinse it. But no, ma'am. For that dirty martini, you want that brine, baby.
Okay, so if
So the
you're using
saltier the
the
better.
actual
If
lemon,
it's too salty, definitely balance it out with a bit more white grape juice.
so if you're cooking with the actual lemon itself, go ahead and rinse it. But
Yes, ma'am.
but the salt isn't necessarily carrying into the juice. The flavor of the salt's not really carrying into the juice itself so much.
The juice is salty. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay. So we
Um,
need the grape juice. Gotcha.
and thank you. We have a few more questions still. Thank you to everyone who's contributed, but we need to end this meeting. We're actually over time. Thanks for all your great questions. So we can answer additional questions online. You're welcome to contact us. But Cole, please take it away for our last few slides. And for
Great.
folks, thanks for hanging with us.
Great. So we just have a few more. Now, I promised that at the very end, I'd have a lovely, useful slide with some flavor combos. These flavors, I have tried these. They work really well together, and you can also find recipes online if you search for this for different mocktails and even cocktails. Basil with strawberry, thyme with peach, and thyme with elderberry. Rosemary works really well with blackberry. Sage and grapefruit are delicious together, and sage and blackberry also works well. Mint and watermelon pair well as mint and grape, believe it or not. Bay leaves really complement blackberry. And then for those of you that like more citrusy and astringent flavors, you might really like cilantro mixed with lime and lemon or mixed with either or. Oregano plays really well with the lemon, and it would play really well with those preserved lemons that Mika showed us how to make. And oregano also does wonders alongside green apples. And then finally, culinary lavender with strawberry. And I say culinary lavender because there's some varieties of lavender that have a better, an edible flavor, and other varieties of lavender that don't taste good at all. So try some of these pairings. And on our final note, across cultures and history, the act of drinking beverages together has been understood as both social and sensory pleasures, not just consumption. Anthropologists describe beverages as embodied material culture, meaning that how we enjoy a drink, who we share it with, and the rituals around it are central to its social meaning. Cheers to that. So if you have any questions, I don't know, Kristen, if we want to answer any of those, but I can also finish our last 3 slides and then we can stick around for questions for folks who want to stay. You let me know.
Yes, please do,
Do that.
because we need to end on time. So
Great.
go ahead through our last few. You can take it
Great.
away, Cole.
So we have some free UCMFP online delivery programs coming up. We have a monthly Ask a Master Food Preserver live Q&A on Wednesday, February 11th. We've got a program on Saturday, February 21st, homemade baby and toddler food. And then Wednesday, February 25th, deep dive into marmalades. We also would love for you all to sign up for our monthly newsletter, like us on our Facebook page, and then also our Instagram account. And then finally, at the end of this Zoom, a brief survey is going to pop up in your web browser. Please complete that. When you submit, a pop-up acknowledgement is going to include a link to the slides for this very presentation and a multiple page, I think it's over 10 pages, a handout with recipes, information on the prickly pear fruits, and some additional tips are in there. Thank you all so much for your time and your interest. Happy preserving. I hope that the beverages in your future are more flavorful, fun, and bright.